contract. It's just my question would be, if you're drafting a guy like this in your team, are you looking at it as, well, we need to bring this guy in for 3 years or 4 years and win with him while we can stack an unbelievable roster around him? Or are we saying, no, 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 it's a decade, it's 15 years. That's what we're looking for drafting this guy. And, it's interesting because that stat was out there about how, I can't remember the years, maybe it's quarterbacks from 2000, whatever,
9 to
2009 to
2016.
2016. Yeah, that they're all
Yep.
gone from their teams.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're all losers. I mean, it just means that what happens a lot to these quarterbacks, Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, I think, are great examples. Their teams are great. Then expectations and money get put on them, and the teams fall apart because that's the NFL and that's the salary cap world, and also the ages of players. And, you got to hit on everybody's peak to go to the Super Bowl and all that. And then the expectations get unfairly set. And all of a sudden you go 9-7, your coach says, oh, sorry, I need a better quarterback now. And, oh, he's underperforming. Yeah. It was an outlier year. It's like, well, that's kind of the world now of quarterbacking, unless you're truly special, unless you are Patrick Mahomes. And even he is going to run into some new challenges when his contract starts to go up and they have to make some moves. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers. We even saw when their roster dipped and their coaching wasn't great at one point, all of a sudden things were pretty hard for Aaron Rodgers. So, I think if a team took the approach of, this guy will be our quarterback for 5 years, and that is it, and there is under no circumstance we're signing him, but we are going to spend crazy money to fill up this roster around this dude, then I think it's not a terrible move. And I don't think this type of player is over with, but I also think if you're drafting in the top 15, you got to look for somebody who can transcend that. Like that's you're not playing for a 6 out of 10, you're playing for a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 quarterback. And so, that's why I'll be very interested to see how teams approach this. But he just has kind of a Jared Goff type of, curve sort of ahead of him if he even lands in the right situation where he has, ideal opportunities.
Yeah, I think Jared Goff is probably his absolute ceiling. I mean, their skill sets are pretty similar. I thought Jared Goff was a more polished and more prolific passer just to every level of the field. And at Cal, he wasn't throwing to, a bunch of first-round picks at wide receiver, and his line wasn't great. But yeah, I think that's probably the best you can get out of him. And this could be a whole nother podcast, and maybe it will be. But what you just said about if a team behind the scenes kind of said, hey, we're going to draft Mac Jones, it's going to be earlier than most people would have expected. And to kind of go in this short-sighted mindset in the NFL that I think when you're the fan of a team that is picking relatively high and you needed a quarterback, you're excited about getting a 22-year-old guy, that you have such a long-term mentality. And I certainly think that a GM and a head coach and an offensive coordinator, they have those same thoughts on draft night. But you're right that the reality of a GM and a head coach and an offensive coordinator and even a quarterback staying together, or even if the offensive coordinator leaves, all the rest of those three pieces staying together as one cohesive unit for more than 4 or 5 years, it's a pretty big rarity in today's NFL. And I think what you just said, picking him and saying, you know what, he's our quarterback 4 years, let's spend a ton of money on receivers and O-line and tight ends, and let's see what we can get out of him. That's like a different type of team building process that we haven't seen. That teams, to me, rightfully are swinging for the fences and hoping for a Patrick Mahomes or a Deshaun Watson that can elevate their team and can be a tremendous individual quarterback. But there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and you could have this quarterback on a cheaper contract and do a lot of those other things financially. So that is probably the situation or the mindset a team would have to have if they pick Mac Jones.